They got rubber door stops from a hardware store and wood screwed them all the way along the lower part of the bumper of the car and then painted over them black. So I've been looking for a track car for quite a while, and I'd had friends who had the early 986 Boxsters, and they were, again, being sort of in that Porsche world. I saw those cars, I got to drive them, and I thought this is actually really cheap. They're controversial looks, but they are fantastic drivers' cars. They just handle very well. Not a lot of power, but fun little car. And I thought that would make a great track car, a reasonable budget. And I started my hunt just sort of casually looking, and a car had been shared on the Australian car forums for a while, just saying, how ugly is this car? And I sort of avoided it for a while, and then I was just looking at it going, it's been for sale for ages. Nobody's going to buy it. I went and had a look at it, and the whole time I was sort of looking at it going, why have they made these choices? And when I'd finished test driving it, the owner's like, okay, yeah, thanks. Because of the way I was talking about it the whole time, he just walked away, and I'm like, are we going to negotiate here? I think he was very shocked for me to make an offer, but I made a very low cash offer and bought and drove this car home. And it's something that I have very openly called the ugliest Boxster in Australia, if not one of the ugliest Porsches in the world. I know it's slightly mean to the previous owner, but there's young people who obviously have some very questionable tastes, and some of these tastes are almost criminal. So it needs to be documented, and that was my experience with this car. So what it is it's a 1998 Porsche Boxster. It was a base Boxster, but it was manual. It was black on black, which is not a terrible spec. I don't particularly like black cars because they're horrible to clean, but it just kept getting worse the more you looked at it. So the first thing that hits you is it has this odd sort of bonnet bulge on the front. Somebody's told me, I think it's like a Gembala KN fiberglass sort of bonnet frame that they had stuck onto the front of the car. Under the paint, there is a huge American eagle, in Australia, of course, on the bonnet. But obviously the sticker kit they bought had a few. So there was a second one could fit just behind it. So you've got to use them up. There's two American eagles on the bonnet, and then there's sort of some vents along the side that had red mesh behind them, which of course have flashing lights at night that glow, and that sort of thing. I understand that sort of stuff, but continuing back around, I bought the car in the afternoon and had to travel home on dusk and as it got dark. And I realised when I got in the car that it had sort of 5% window tint on the sides and the back, and had also sort of 35% or something on the windscreen. When I got to turning the headlights on, they'd modified the headlights somehow, and there was nothing coming out. I think when I got out of the car, there was light, but it was not projecting out the front at all. To make matters worse, it was dark outside, and there was just underglow everywhere in the cabin. So all I've got is bright red inside, reflecting off of all the tint. So I couldn't see out of the car, and that was a hairy drive home. When I got home, I went through the rest of the questionable modifications on the car. So as I went down the sides, there was sort of stick-on plastic side pipes. I think they might have been chrome, but they painted them black. Again, very questionable taste, and little plastic wings and things that they would have found and just sort of stuck on, and I had to cut a bit of it off here, so I'll use the rest of it over there or something. And that was bad. If you look down the side, there's like a Grim Reaper in flames that is a sticker under the paint of the car. Getting around the back was one of the most interesting parts of the car. They decided to build their own diffuser on the car. They got rubber door stops from a hardware store and wood screwed them all the way along the lower part of the bumper of the car, and then painted over them black, body coloured them and stuff. And when I actually took them off, they still say doorstop on them embossed and on the doorstops, which I then gave away to my viewers, which they all loved. And I had to give them with a warning saying, be careful, it may increase downforce on your vehicle. It didn't finish there. It kept going because they obviously had more of these doorstops. So let's put a diffuser on the front of the car, the lower edge of the front as well, with more doorstops. That's when I discovered the worst modification to the car by a long way, is because they decided that they obviously had some panel beating skills. Although the taste was bad, the execution was not horrendous. But they decided to put driving lights in the front of the car. And there's two big holes in the front of the car. So that's perfect spot for driving lights, and molded them in completely and totally blocked the radiators. There was zero airflow through the radiator at all. I did open them up, and one of the first things is I took the car on a track day, and obviously the damage had already been done by that stage. First track day, those engines are quite reliable generally. I have had friends who've had them and tried to kill them for years, and it would not die. It threw a rod on the first track day, and when I started pulling it apart, when I tried to drop the oil, it was full of water, and then when I tried to drop the exhaust, it was full of oil. Nothing was where it was supposed to be, and the engine was toast. So as part of my build, I would have liked to have tried to keep the engine for longer and try and modify it and see how good a track car I could build with aero and things without increasing power. I had to speed up that process, so I actually did an engine swap with an Audi V8 because I learnt, and I'd actually known beforehand, and this was always the purpose with this car, was going to be put this Audi V8 swap, because I found that the transmission in a Boxster is actually an Audi front-wheel drive transmission in the back of the Boxster. So the Audi engine bolts straight up to the transmission. So I'm running the standard Boxster transmission, and that was the last thing that bolted up. Everything else was a nightmare. Like, it's such a pain working on a mid-engine car with a much bigger engine than was originally there. It actually doesn't weigh a lot more than the original engine. I did weigh them both, and I can't remember right now, but it was 17 kilograms or something different. It really wasn't a great deal of difference, and it's mid-engined anyway, so the balance is there. I've since removed a lot of the hideous external parts of the car and fitted a sort of the Cayman-style hardtop. I'm not much of a convertible person, so I like the hardtop for aerodynamic and lighter weight reasons. And and I have been developing into a track car. It's still not pretty yet. I still have yet to paint it and finish doing the bodywork, but it now at least runs and drives and does the things it's supposed to with an Audi engine rather than the Boxster engine. And I think it feels a little bit better about itself, not having all of these extraneous cosmetic changes. I still have a lot of area to go on it. It's going to be a track car, although again I'm beginning to see the merit in making it keep registering it again and having it as a road registrable track car. I let the registration lapse, so it means I have to go through some engineering, etc., to get it registered for the road in Australia. But it has racing buckets in it now, because when I bought it, it had, for some reason, had RX-8 seats instead of the Boxster seats. They're not particularly good seats anyway. The front seat had 2 finger-tight bolts in it, with a weird bracket on one of them, because I think they swapped the seats and realised, oh, hang on, they don't bolt in. The passenger seat had 1 bolt in the seat. That was it. So, I didn't realise I drove it home with with nothing connected to the seat. So I've since racing buckets, and cosmetically it's going to have, as I said, aero has the Cayman bodywork. I have to replace the bonnet of the car because they dented and cut massive holes in the original bonnet once I peeled the sort of the ugly Gambala thing off to fit wiring and everything. So they've ruined that. I've got another bonnet to go on, and I'll respray it and make it a lot prettier. It now has better track wheels on it and better suspension and all of the bits and pieces to make a good track car. The engine conversion was driving me crazy for quite some time. again, I'm not a mechanic, and the cooling was the thing that just kept being a stumbling block. I was sort of thinking it was a thermostat, but it worked in the other car. I bought a complete car to actually swap the engine, so I'd driven it. I knew the engine worked. When I got it in the Boxster, I just couldn't get it to cool, and it was one of my mistakes, is I blocked off one of the top coolant ports in the engine. There was a massive air leak, air pocket in there, and even using a vacuum bleeder and everything, I could not get the air pocket out, and that's why it was overheating, and now I finally fixed it. Yeah, if it was in the front of a car, things would have been simpler, but the way the coolant system in the Boxster works with it, everything going down and then up into the coolant tank in the boot of the car, and then the water lines then going down under the car and coming up into the radiators at the front. There's a whole thing with lots of places where there can be air pockets, and it's a real nightmare to bleed. So I generally spend at least 2 or 3 days on my main project, and then I spend other days when I have time off on a secondary project. I do have a full-time job. I am a firefighter. But that gives me plenty of time off in the days to work on these silly projects.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305-305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.